On Iran, one assumes that you're familiar with the latest Wall Street Journal report concerning the payment of the $400 million to Iran. Is there anything in the Wall Street Journal story that you dispute on factual grounds?
Well, look, rather than getting up here, as much as I'm sure you'd love for me to pick apart
It's a very
every
simple
media
question.
story.
Is there anything you say is untrue in that story?
What I would like to do is respond to it this way, okay? Because I've seen the article. So let me just let me address this whole issue of timing this way. We were able to conclude multiple strands of diplomacy within a 24-hour period. And oh, by the way, you can go back and look at your own work that was done back then. And you'll see that we were completely above board about this. Even the president himself talked about the timing. We were able to conclude multiple strands of diplomacy within a 24-hour period, including implementation of the nuclear deal, the prisoner talks, and the settlement of an outstanding Hague Tribunal claim, which saved American taxpayers potentially billions of dollars. As we said at the time, we deliberately leveraged that moment to finalize these outstanding issues nearly simultaneously. It's already publicly known that we returned to Iran its $400 million in that same time period as part of the Hague Settlement Agreement. With concerns that Iran may renege on the prisoner release, given unnecessary delays regarding persons in Iran who could not be located, as well as, to be quite honest, mutual mistrust between Iran and the United States, we of course sought to retain maximum leverage until after American citizens were released. And that was our top priority.
Just to return to my question, is there anything in the Wall Street Journal story that you dispute on factual grounds?
You'd have to, look, I don't have the article in front of me, so I'm not going to go through line by line.
I'm not asking you to do that. I'm just saying you read the thing. If there's something left out at you that you said, well, that's untrue, you'd be in a position to tell us, wouldn't you?
James, I think I've characterized the central finding of the story, which was that the payment of the $400 million was not done until after the prisoners were released. I'm not disputing that.
Why weren't you able to tell us that 10 days ago when I myself asked the question, can you at least assure us that those prisoners were in the process of being released before that money
As I said
touched
at
down?
the time, we weren't in a position then and had no intention of getting into a tick-tock for every movement that happened in that 24-hour period. That's what I answered your question as at the time. I think it was me. We answered your question at the time. That was never our intention to have to do that. But you're asking me about a press story that's already been written about it, that has more detail about it. So I'm providing some context with respect to that.
But you're changing a little bit, because first you said that this was two separate diplomatic tracks. That's what the White House said. That's what the State Department said. Now you're saying that it was used as leverage, which would
Connect the two.
Connect the two. Thank you, Jake. Connect them.
They were independent efforts.
But you were using one
They
for
came
leverage
together.
as a part of the other.
Well, they came together near simultaneously, and I think it would make sense, perfect sense, that when we're in this moment,
It would. It does
that
make sense.
if your top priority is to get your Americans out, and you're already having some issues about locating some of them, that you want to make sure that that release gets done before you complete that transaction. No, they're connected in the sense that they came together at the same time, and we obviously were making our priority getting the Americans out. And frankly, I think if we had done it any differently, then I think you and I and James and I would be having a much different conversation up here, wouldn't we?
The payment was contingent on their release.
What I'm saying is,
Right?
What I'm saying is that because we had concerns that Iran may renege on the prisoner release, given unnecessary delays that we were already regarding some persons in Iran, as well as some mutual mistrust, we, of course, naturally, and should be held at task if we didn't, sought to retain maximum leverage until after the Americans were released. That was our top priority.
Can you connect the dots for me? How does the withholding of the cash give you the kind of leverage you were seeking?
We felt that it would be imprudent not to consider that some leverage in trying to make sure that our Americans got out.
So if it has leverage on the release of the Americans, then there's a direct connection between these two events, you're now telling us, right?
I'm saying the events came together simultaneously. But obviously when you're inside that 24-hour period and you already now have concerns about the end game in terms of getting your Americans out, it would have been foolish, imprudent, irresponsible for us not to try to maintain maximum leverage. If you're asking me was there a connection in that regard at the end game, I'm not going to deny that.
So wait, hold on. Getting away from the word leverage, which in basic English, you're saying that you wouldn't give them the $400 million in cash until the prisoners were released, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Is it because the